Hello everyone, and welcome to the Season 1 review/recap short compilation of The Sopranos. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. I appreciate it. Let me know what you think about this in the comments. This isn't a full review. This was just a compilation of shorts that I did on my channel. I will be coming out with a full review of the Sopranos seasons, each season one video. It should be about an hour and a half each video, but that will be coming out soon. It is a lot of work, so just stay tuned on that. Just wanted to throw this out there as a little appetizer. All right, and with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into this. I just want to thank you guys for watching. Until next time, let me know what you guys think about this in the comments. Everyone have a great day. Hello everyone, and welcome to the first part in a new series. In this series, we are going to be recapping every single episode of the hit show The Sopranos. And starting off this episode, we got Season 1, Episode 1, The Pilot. The pilot episode aired January 10th, 1999. And this episode shows a great introduction to a good amount of characters that we see throughout the series. And it starts out with one of the most infamous scenes in the entire series, the chase scene featuring Tony, Chrissy, and the dude that owes him money. Overall, I rate this episode a 9 out of 10, one of the best pilots ever aired, just not the best Sopranos episode. I do have to say though, it sets the series up perfectly and it shows off a lot of characters and their quirks. Let me know what your favorite episode of The Sopranos was. Hello everyone, and welcome to part 2 in our new series. In this series, we are going to be recapping and rating every single episode of The Sopranos. And today we are rating Season 1, Episode 2, 46 Long. This episode was aired January 17th, 1999. In this episode, we see Christopher Moltisanti and his associate Brendan hijack a truck and bring it back to Tony. Unfortunately, that truck belongs to Junior. After this, we see Chrissy and Tony get into an argument about the hijacked goods, and then we see the sit-down with Junior, Jackie Aprile, and Tony. They decide to make Chrissy and Brendan pay for the goods that they stole. In this episode, we also see the type of relationship that Tony and his mother have. I would give this episode a solid 8 out of 10, definitely a little bit more world building, and just a solid episode overall. Hello everyone, and welcome to part 3 of our Sopranos review/recap series. In this series, we go over every single episode of The Sopranos, and in this episode, we are going over Season 1, Episode 3. The episode is called Denial, Anger, Acceptance, and it aired January 24th, 1999. In this episode, we see Christopher and Brendan return a truckload of stolen suits to Junior. We also see Meadow and her friend try and buy fucking crystal meth from Christopher and his friend Brendan. And finally, the best part of the episode, and one of the best storylines in the entire series, we have Paulie and Silvio going into the Jewish-run motel. They do this in order to try and get the son-in-law of the owner to drop the business and to get a divorce from the daughter. Paulie being the best character in the show, though, he immediately attacks the son-in-law. This episode was amazing. That last storyline definitely carried the episode. I would give it a solid 9 out of 10. Hello everyone, and welcome to part 4 in our Sopranos recap/review series. In this series, we pick one episode of The Sopranos and review and recap it. Today we got Season 1, Episode 4, Meadowlands. This is the episode where Christopher Moltisanti finds out that Brendan, his associate and close friend, was murdered last episode. This makes Chrissy paranoid, and he wants to go balls to the wall Scarface against Junior. And R.I.P. Jackie Aprile, the boss of the family, ends up dying this episode, which ends up being a huge blessing and curse for Tony. This is also the episode where Meadow and AJ start to talk about what their family actually is and what their dad is actually involved in with the mafia, and that he's kind of balancing between two families. Overall, I'd give this episode a 7.5 out of 10. Amazing episode, just not that fulfilling. Hello everyone, welcome to our Sopranos review/recap series. In this series, we pick one episode of The Sopranos and review and recap it. This episode, we have a personal favorite, Season 1, Episode 5, College. Like I said, this one's a personal favorite of mine, so I'm going to be a little bit biased. Tony and his daughter, Meadow, are out touring colleges. This is actually the episode where the famous quote of the series, "Dad, are you in the mafia?" comes from. While stopping at a gas station to refuel on the journey, Tony notices a ex-associate who turned around and is now in the witness protection program. In this episode, Tony has to balance both of his families, and he has to go and take out this rat while still making sure Meadow gets to tour her dream college. And this is the episode where Father Phil stops by unexpectedly, and Carmela has a wonderful, heart-opening talk with him over wine and food, and he spends the night. Best episode of the first season, 10 out of fucking 10. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our Sopranos recap and review series. In this series, we pick one episode of The Sopranos and review and recap it. Today, we got Season 1, Episode 6, Pax Soprana, aired February 14th, 1999. This is a pretty weird episode. Basically, half the storyline is about Tony's dick. He's having marital issues, as always, and can't get it up, and he wants to fuck his therapist. On the lighter part of the episode, Junior, as new acting boss of the family, wants to make people know that he is in charge. He starts taxing everyone and messing up everything for everyone, basically. Specifically, Hesh is very upset with the new tax that was put on him. Like I said, the other captains, along with Hesh, are very upset. They go to Tony, and Tony meets up with Johnny Sachs, the New York boss, to find a solution about this whole entire Junior situation. Overall, I would give this episode a 6.1 out of 10. Pretty weird, but still not bad. It's The Sopranos. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our Sopranos recap and review series. In this series, we review and recap one episode of The Sopranos. Today we got Season 1, Episode 7, Down Neck, aired February 21st, 1999. Another great episode. AJ gets in trouble in school, which leads to him having to spend time with his grandmother, who is fucking awful. AJ, who is also an awful character, lets it slip that Tony, his dad, is seeing a psychiatrist. This then leads to Tony having flashbacks while he was talking to his therapist about what his life was like at AJ's age. We find out he basically had a terrible childhood. He saw his dad cut off someone's fucking finger while collecting money. But I do love this episode. It expands so much on Tony as a character and gives him a little bit of a backstory. I will give this episode a solid 8.34 out of 10. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our Sopranos recap and review series. In this series, we review and recap one episode of The Sopranos. Duh. Today we are looking at Season 1, Episode 8, The Legend of Tennessee Moltis, aired February 28th, 1999. Another amazing episode. We see Tony cleaning out all the illegal goods from his house due to learning that the feds are going to start rolling out indictments. We see him moving guns, cash, jewelry, and even his wife's wedding ring. Tony then has Carmela take his mother out on a little date while he sneaks into her house and clears it out before the feds come. And Christopher Moltisanti, being Christopher Moltisanti, gets upset after his dead friend Brendan gets called a mafioso on the TV, and he doesn't even get mentioned. And finally, we see Tony's awful mother tell Junior that he's seeing a psychiatrist. Like I said, another great episode. I'm going to give this one a solid 8.66 out of 10. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our Sopranos recap and review series. In this series, we review and recap one episode of The Sopranos at a time. And today, we have Season 1, Episode 9, Boca, aired March 7th, 1999. In this episode, we see the FBI is basically fucking looking at everyone from street-level no-names all the way up to the acting boss, Junior. Speaking good old Junior, he takes a vacation with his girlfriend. He then becomes worried that she's going to tell people that he enjoys to go down on her. Quote, "'Cause if you eat that, you'll eat anything, damn it." Tony obviously immediately finds out about this, and a great comedy scene between Junior and Tony plays out, one of the best in the series by far. After being fucked with all episode, Junior then lets Tony know that he knows that he's seeing a psychiatrist. This episode was really more funny than anything. I'll give this one a 7.74 out of 10. Hello everyone, and welcome back to part 10 of our Sopranos recap / review series. In this series, we pick one episode of The Sopranos and review and recap it. Today we have Season 1, Episode 10, A Hit is a Hit, aired March 14th, 1999. In this episode, we see Christopher's girlfriend Adriana wanting to get involved in the music industry. This leads to a meeting with herself and Christopher and a rapper named Massive Genius. Genius, however, has two other plans. First off, he wants to fuck Adriana, and secondly, he wants to get money out of Hesh, who has been screwing over an African-American artist for the last 40 years. And in this episode, we see Tony play a fucking great prank on his neighbor where he gives him a box and asks him to hold on to it. The neighbor thinks that there's some type of illegal goods or something like that inside of the box, and he starts to stress about it while Tony walks away and laughs. Truthfully, this episode wasn't the best, but once we got to see Tony fucking with his neighbor, that made it a little bit better. I give it a solid 7.334 out of 10. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 11 in our Sopranos review/recap series. In this series, we pick one episode of The Sopranos and review and recap it. And today, we got season 1, episode 11, Nobody Knows Anything. Aired March 21st, 1999. In this episode, we see Tony trying to figure out who in his group is wearing a wire. A crooked cop on his payroll says Big Pussy is the one wearing the wire, but Tony has some hard time believing this due to Pussy's loyalty. We then see Tony confide in Paulie and talk about how he feels about the entire situation, which means that he also didn't suspect Paulie of being the snitch. Later on in the episode, we see Tony's mother trying to convince Junior that Tony is trying to go past him and trying to overthrow him. He actually fucking believes her and takes this to heart and starts getting all paranoid like the idiot that Junior is. I'll give this episode a solid 8.235 out of 10. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to part 12 of our Sopranos recap/review series. In this series, we pick one episode of The Sopranos and go over it and review and recap it. Today, we got season 1, episode 12, Isabella, aired March 28th, 1999. In this episode, we see how bad Tony's anxiety of depression actually is, him not being able to leave the house and staying in his bathrobe and bed for most of the day. Eventually, when he does go out of the house, Junior's paranoia comes back to bite him in the ass, and Tony has an attempt on his life. Thankfully, Junior hired 2 terrible assassins, and they did not take out Tony. Tony was able to get away, but since it was in broad daylight, the police got involved. Tony then told the police that it was a failed carjacking. With his attempt on his life, he becomes reinvigorated and he tries to figure out who actually had the hit put on him. He thinks he knows who it is, but he still needs to gather proof before he acts. I will give this episode a solid 9.12 out of 10. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the 13th part in our Sopranos recap and review series. In this series, we pick one episode of The Sopranos, go over it, and review and recap it. Today, we got season 1, episode 13, I Dream of Jeannie Cusamano, aired April 4th, 1999. In this episode, we see Tony's suspicions turn out true when he gets played a wiretap from the FBI that confirms that Junior was the one that put a hit out on him. Tony obviously doesn't let Junior know this. He later then speaks to Junior. Junior gives him the okay to deal with the snitch in the group who turns out to be Big Pussy. In this episode, we also see Tony open up to his crew a little bit more, and he tells them that he's been seeing a psychiatrist. They all obviously feel a certain way about it, but none of them bring it up. Finally, Tony's mother, who may or may not be suffering from Alzheimer's, tells Artie that Tony was the one that set his restaurant out on fire. This was a great episode. It was jam-packed with a lot of growth and a lot of overall character development. I would give it a 9.334 out of 10.